Hi YouTube, welcome back to another little Artdoll video. So this is a little tutorial on how I made my white Inari messenger fox that's currently available in my shop, creaturesnet.com. Payment plans are welcome, so just shoot me a message if you're interested. So I started off by sculpting a head out of monster clay. I then molded this and cast it in resin, so there's two Inari foxes that I've done with this head sculpt. I was originally going to do this as a sculptural piece, but I ended up chopping the head off and using it as an Artdoll head. And if you want to know a little bit more about monster clay, I've got a video on my channel just talking about what it is, and just how I use it and everything like that, and other alternatives to clay. So moving on to, once I've cast the parts in resin, I start painting it up. So I've added a ball and socket armature to this one it's just like something to hold while I paint it, and then I'll end up using it later on in a doll. So this one's just going to be white, so basically I just painted the whole thing white with 2 coats of water-based acrylic paint, and then once it's dry, I start adding all the little details. So I'm doing the eyes in just a plain black, and I'm sort of winging them out on both sides, so they're quite extended along that sculptural piece. And then I'm going to be painting the nose black as well, so just being really careful just to outline the nose first and then filling it in later. And I'm going to do some red highlights on this one, so I'm using the brand's paint. The black one is Chromacryl and the red one is a golden paint. It's a really nice consistency. The golden ones are quite thick though, so sometimes you need to water them down to make them a little bit easier to paint with. I'm also doing some little whiskers here as well, just in some black paint. So for the red highlights, I'm doing a little highlight under the eyes. I'm doing a pattern on the forehead, or the top of the head. The red under the eyes, I'm just following the wing tips of the full length. And then for the head, I'm just doing a line up the middle, and then I'll do a circle at the base. The ears, I'm going to colour in the middle part red, and I'm going to put some lines on just various little locations around the head too. Alright, so I've cast some parts up in resin as well for the feet, and I've sculpted these as well out of monster clay and just created a mold and cast them. And I'm just quickly doing in the paw pads in a black, and I've also added some armature to it as well when I've cast these parts in. Moving on to the faux fur, I'm just using a plain white faux fur for this one, so I'm drawing out some patterns for the body, which includes 2 sides and the underbelly. This is the old way I used to do things. So I mainly do things by hand now over a needle felted body, but this is sort of the old way that I did things, where I sewed it up on a sewing machine and then flipped it the right way around and sort of inserted the armature inside of it and sewed it up that way and added the polyfill in also that way. So this is the white faux fur that I'm using. And I'm just using a small pair of sharp scissors just to cut out the patterns for this one. Just being careful just to cut the backing of the faux fur and not the actual pile, because then obviously you cut the tips off it and you can't really use it. So I've also got a tail piece here that I'm just cutting out quickly as well. So this is what we have once I've sewn it up on the sewing machine. I obviously need to leave some ends open so I can flip it the right way around. So I mainly leave the legs open and the back, and also obviously the neck area. They're all open, and I'm going to create the armature, which is my smallest armature, 1/8 size ball and socket armature, and I'm going to insert that into the body and attach all of the pieces as well. And then I can start sewing everything up. So I'm using a ladder stitch to sew everything up for this one, and a good quality thread to make sure I can get a little bit of tension on that thread and it won't snap. Once it's all sewn up, I add my polyfill. Before I sew it up, I add my polyfill and then sew it up. But once it's all sewn up, I can start gluing all the pieces together. So I'm using a tacky fabric glue to glue everything together. That sort of takes about 24 hours to fully cure and adhere, but it's really, really strong. It's just from a local craft store here called Spotlight. And if you don't have that store here, you can find something in your local craft store. It's just like a clear, thick fabric glue. And it works really well for resins, polymer clays, and fabrics. Then I can give it a full little shave. So I'm just going to shave sort of the side areas and obviously the legs. I'm going to leave the back a bit longer, and then I'm going to add some patterns onto the body. So I'm just doing these little wavy patterns using some fabric markers. These are stained by Sharpie, and I don't think you can get them in Australia anymore, but they're really, really good. I think you can still get them in the States because I mainly used these for my black markings and stuff. I rarely did coloured markings, so I found those markers really great, but I can't get them here in Australia anymore, which is I don't know why. So yeah, Sharpie, can you bring them back here? So I just let that dry for again at least a couple of hours before touching that. And then these little, I always forget what they're called, but they're like little sword things that go in their mouths. I just sculpted them out of polymer clay, and I'm just gluing them together using just a little bit of super glue, and I'm going to paint them up in one's going to be a nice copper and one is a pewter colour, and they're going to be one each for my Inari foxes. So that's pretty much it. So you check it out at creaturesinnet.com. It is for sale along with all my other Japanese collection that I released in this series. Thank you to my patrons for supporting me. I really appreciate it. Check me out on Patreon if you want early access and a little bit more. You can also find me on TikTok, Facebook and Instagram at Creatures of Nat, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye!